Okay, so Francis Ngannou, Ciryl, former training partners, former teammates. They were coached by the same coach for a while. They came up together basically. It's very fickle about like how much they train together, right? But I think that that is just part of the story heading into this massive fight, this heavyweight fight. When you look at it from the outside in, you know what I mean? What are the intricacies that fans need to look at for this matchup?
Sure. Yeah, this is a great fight. I think all things aside, anytime that we have the heavyweight title fight, there's always just a little bit more on the line. You know what I'm saying? It just adds instantly kind of that additional air of excitement. Especially when you add a guy like Francis, who's probably the most dangerous guy in the UFC, and then on the other side of that, you have Ciryl, who is probably the most dynamic and well-rounded heavyweight on the roster too, and evolving the quickest. So this is a really exciting matchup. But outside of just kind of like the stylistic matchup, there's so much that goes into this fight. Like you said, I think those are things that sometimes people don't always consider. They look at just the two fighters and how they match up, but I think it's really important to look at where they are in their careers. I think it's important to look at, who they train with right now. And like you said, former training partners, there is history there. Coach Lopez, I would say, knows Francis better than anyone, probably more so than Eric. I know Eric knows Francis really well too. He's spent a lot of time with him and built him as well, kind of refined him. But Ferdinand built him, so I always think those are the most interesting matchups because there is like this little X factor. There's probably some things that Coach Lopez knows that aren't keen to the public or public information that he's going to save for fight night. He knows who Francis is as a person. He knows what Francis does well. He knows what he doesn't do well. He knows maybe what causes Francis to get emotional, and what his triggers are. Just when you spend the amount of time with someone that a coach and a fighter do, you get to know that person really well, and what sets them off, what gets them motivated, what demoralizes them. And this is part of the sport, man. It's fighting, it's the art of war. These things have to be used in the fight, and especially at the championship level. If you're not using these things, you're at a disadvantage. So I know that Coach Eric is a phenomenal coach. He's going to be aware of this. I'm sure him and Francis have talked about this too. It's one thing to talk about it, and then it's another thing to be ready for it and react to it in the fight. So I think there are a couple different X factors in this fight, and I think we're going to see them play out not only in the fight, but I think in fight week too, and maybe even some stuff behind the scenes off camera that we don't get to catch. But these are those really small details that go into championship level fighting that we don't always get to see, or the public doesn't get to see. And these things can make a difference in the cage, so I'm really intrigued about this matchup.
When you look at it, they were former partners, sparring or training partners for a little time, right? So they kind of understand certain patterns each of them have, right? And then they kind of so it's is it more of like who has changed or like altered their patterns that has the advantage in this fight, taking away all the mental warfare and everything. It's just fighter versus fighter.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Another good example of this that we saw recently was Corey and TJ, right? Now I don't know, like you said, I don't know how much those two trained together, Francis and Ciryl. I would have to imagine a decent amount though, because we're talking about MMA in France, which is not that huge of a scene,
Mm.
right? And then on top of that, now you're talking about two heavyweights, and there's probably not a ton of super talented MMA heavyweights over there. So I imagine that they did a decent amount of work together. TJ and Corey trained a good amount together. Now, that was a long time ago too, right? Like you said. So it's a matter of who's evolved the most since that time. But I do think that a lot of fighters have habits that are hard to break, or it takes a long time to break those habits. And especially under pressure, under fatigue, under duress, you will see some of those old habits come out no matter what, right? They're just so ingrained. So I'm interested to see if either side can capitalize on those, if they can get someone to the point of fatigue or duress where those habits come out. But like you said, yes, it's going to come down to who's evolved more, right? We would like to see, or you would hope that you see almost a completely different version than those guys had sparred with in the past, because then we just get a totally new matchup here. And I think that'll be really exciting. So I would trust that both coaches and both of these fighters have put in the time to continue to evolve a lot. So yes, as much as you would like to think that, okay, they train together, they do know some tendencies, I do think it's probably been a while, and it's going to be a different fight than they both imagined too,
Thank you guys for watching the video to the end. Make sure you guys subscribe, hit the like button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of the content that we're putting out. We got a lot of things in the works, so please stay tuned.